Hello and welcome everybody to this recorded session on cash flow forecasting at the ACT Middle East Treasury Summit 2021. As we all know, cash forecasting has always been one of the most important areas within corporate treasury and cash management, and has always played a very big role. But of course, whenever a crisis hits, such as we are experiencing with the COVID pandemic, the focus on cash flow forecasting is becoming much more intense, not just from within the treasury team, but wide beyond that. This is a recorded session, so unfortunately you cannot ask any questions, but the participants to this session will be available throughout the two-day event. So please reach out to them and send them a private message if you would like to have a specific question. And without further ado, I would like to have a short word about my two guests. I am here with Abdessalem Lassoued from Ola Energy and Saad from Nestle. Let's just start off by going to Abdessalem. Abdessalem, of course, I'm sure that in Ola Energy, cash flow forecasting is of very big importance as well. Could you please explain a little bit about maybe your role in Ola Energy and how cash flow forecasting was handled pre-COVID and post-COVID?
So thank you. Abdessalem, I'm Group Treasurer of Ola Energy. I have joined Ola Energy with head office based here in Dubai since August 2015. So I am leading the strategy and the function of the Treasury across the group. The group is operating in more than 20 countries. So it's we are operating in the downstream activity with more than 1,200 service stations in 20 countries and serving more than 50 airports with 60 lubricants, with 60 terminals and 6 blending terminals. So we have a lot of logistics to manage, and the cash for the group Ola, like any company operating in the downstream and in distribution area, the cash is one of the most critical area on the group because it's very critical to ensure and to secure the cycle of the working capital, which is vital to the activity and to the business of the group. That's one of the most critical elements which we could consider here in the group, mainly post-COVID, as primary decisional element for the group, for the management, even for the management, the cash flow management, the cash forecast, because it's very critical to secure and to avoid any business disruption and to ensure business continuity.
Fantastic. What kind of forecast are you running currently, and has that changed during a post-COVID?
So we have to present the cash forecast before COVID, when we were in maintaining a lot of stability. We managed the cash forecast before COVID in monthly basis. So there are some practices that we have trained our affiliates in 20 countries to produce this cash forecast based on monthly basis. Some standard cash flows KPIs, and saying the term is 3 months, 3 months cash forecast that we obtain every month. We collect to consolidate that, and based on that, we make our centralized treasury approach and we perform decisions. This is before COVID. But post-COVID, immediately we detect the significant change in the cycle of the working capitals. The cash flows KPIs are changing so rapidly that the assumption based on what our cash forecast becomes irrelevant in matter of days only. So we moved quickly to build and to train immediately our affiliates and all our treasury teams to build and to produce their forecast in weekly basis with and to produce 12 months forecast but with the breakdowns and more details over 3 months, 13 weeks exactly.
Okay.
So we collect the cash forecast in weekly basis, no longer in monthly basis, and the visibility should be in 12 months, not only 3 months, and the breakdowns not only monthly, but should be weekly. Why? Okay. Because we have to see more the changes in the KPIs, which is very important to make the appropriate decisions and timely.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Abdessalem. Very good and interesting to see. As expected, of course, cash flow forecasting became much more frequent during a time of crisis. Saad, we are delighted to have you here. Could you please introduce yourself, explain a little bit about yourself and the Nestle Treasury operations, and as well cash flow forecasting pre and post COVID?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. So my name is Saad. I've been working with Nestle for almost 8 years now. Before I was based in Dubai as a regional cash manager, including for Africa, Middle East, including Turkey and Pakistan. Now I'm based in Nestle HQ in Switzerland, so I'm in charge of global cash management and corporate finance advising. As Abdessalem said, cash forecasting, honestly, it became more and more important after COVID and maybe even during COVID. Before COVID, as I said, cash forecast is important, but it depends on many variables, mainly the facilities available, maybe the country where we are operating. So this reaches more of lower standing on the agenda. Definitely after COVID, this became really, really important because it can lead you to be better at managing your funding, to be better at managing your costs, to be better at managing your operations. So as we all know, cash flow is very important. I mean, at the end of the day, is what drives the business, right? We can have a business very profitable, but if the cash flow is not appropriate, then this can lead to disastrous situations. This is in general, but then talking about Nestle, I would say depending on the countries. We have countries where we run daily cash forecast because we estimate that this can be quite relevant and it's quite accurate, where you can be even more efficient at cost management when you do it in a daily basis. And there are some others where daily basis it just doesn't make sense because the country situation doesn't allow to be that specific. And then we have also monthly ones. This is for more extreme entities where the cash forecasting, even monthly, we are doing it just to see if we can leverage out of that. But as I say, there are many variables that play a role, either be it political variables, economical variables, governmental ones. Yeah, so I would say it depends, but definitely we pay way more attention to it after COVID because as we all know, the facilities at the banks have become really more tight. The availability of FX in countries where the risk is higher have become more limited. But definitely from a financing cost perspective, from a risk perspective, from an efficient cash management perspective and opportunity cost perspective, that's definitely no way to avoid cash forecasting. Not only at Nestle, because I mean, as we know, Nestle, well, it's present in almost every country in the world, but even for smaller companies, I think this is very important to manage their financial cost, and I believe that post-COVID and pre-COVID is a deal breaker. I mean, it's definitely a deal breaker because when the facilities are available, the fundings are available, the cash forecasting is important. But still, you can manage whenever you have. Let's say you're not highly accurate. You can still deal with your banks and the relationship with the different financial entities to still be covered. But now, if you have, I mean, a proper cash forecasting can differentiate between a successful entity and a medium lower one.
Absolutely, I agree. And did you amend your forecasting process or your forecasting frequency during the COVID period?
I wouldn't say amendment is the word. I would say strengthening somehow. So I think we definitely, I mean, we were paying attention to it even before. Now is just that we are trying to highlight it a bit more and to follow it closely and to make sure everyone understands the importance of cash forecasting and how this can impact the treasury of the business and how this can impact definitely the financial cost and the treasury operations. So I would use the word strengthening it rather than amending it.
And I'm sure that during COVID, the exposure of the cash flow forecast became much greater. Did you see during the COVID that suddenly normally a cash flow forecast might only reach the treasurer, and now it went all the way up to the CFO or the chairman or the board even? Is that something you have seen?
Well, definitely yes, because at the end of the day, the treasurer also is part of the finance team, and I was reading the other way an article which I found really interesting, where they are mentioning that the treasurer is becoming more and more the right hand of the CFO. So and I really believe that, because okay, maybe the CFO is more focused somehow on the P&L and the balance sheet and the controlling side. But without a proper treasury management aside, I would find it difficult to keep the business afloat. Any business here, I'm talking in general. So I definitely realized that yeah, all the controllers and CFOs became really way more aware about the impact that the treasury can have in their operations and in their daily CFO tasks than before.
Fantastic, thank you. Abdessalem, you mentioned that you have significantly changed the cash flow forecasting frequency, and the method and the model. I assume that took quite a lot of training and workshop with your operations to make that happen.
Yeah, that's exactly. So it's the idea because our teams were well trained and very familiar with the classic cash forecast built in monthly basis. And with standard analysis, but the coming of the COVID suddenly and has had a direct impact on the cycle of the working capitals, because all the overall stakeholders becomes very nervous, and some big suppliers, they change their attitudes, they request prepayments instead of 30 days payments. So this is this change of behaviors coming from the suppliers, from the banks also, that decided to reduce immediately some short-term and overdraft facilities, because the banks are also exposed. So this new environment imposed new requirement as to anticipate these unexpected changes. So how to build the forecast in daily basis in the sites, and how to formulate to build this cash forecast in weekly basis with more relevant data and with more breakdowns. Our teams were not well trained to that. So we have to implement immediately some actions as to train them. We made an online, how to extract data, how to ensure and to secure the quality data input from people and from systems. What are some modules in the systems that were not used in the past, and how to use them immediately and to secure this data. And one of the main important elements for which in the past we are not focusing on that is reconciling the cash forecast data with the P&L. This is very important to us, because this is one of the capital elements that ensure relevance of data. So our teams, I remember, they are not yet well trained about that, how to analyze this discrepancy between the cash flow from operations coming from the cash statement with the direct method and the cash flow coming from the indirect methods based on the P&L. We was not demanding on that in the past, but after COVID, this is one of the mandatory elements we need to see. Why? Because this provides us with new KPI elements like expenses on lease, expenses on capex, in investments, acquisitions, and in financing, which are some capital data that are critical to the corporate treasury to make the appropriate decisions when approaching banks or when approaching suppliers or when restructuring the debt of the companies. So these some elements that we have trained our teams, some best practices that immediately we put them in place as to secure this this quality of data input from the people and from the system. Like, for example, how to predict, how to ensure accuracy, to predict receivables, how to alert immediately in case of change of behavior or KPIs of customers' payments or inventories, how to reconcile the data, and how to track the variances between the cash forecast and the actual. So this is what we have already addressed rapidly, saying with a couple of weeks, because we don't have time, as this is one of the most management expectation, as I have explained. The cash forecast suddenly, for me, from my side, becomes it's like the absolute decisional elements required by the management. They look less the P&L. They becomes looking more in the cash forecast than the P&L, which was not the behavior before COVID.
This is when we see again in the times of crisis, cash is king. Yeah, as it always is, but in times of crisis, it comes back all the time. You mentioned a lot of changes that you made to the processes. How important was automation, and how automated is your cash flow forecast, and especially with your new version of the cash flow forecast? So automation and systems, that you had to make major adjustment to systems?
Yeah, so thank you for saying that, Tom, because the question we said is leading to the following of the ideas that I have just explained. Sorry, Chris. So these new requirements to manage the change and in the forms and the quality of data, and also in the frequency of cash flow forecasts, leads directly our teams to manage manually, to manipulate manually tremendous amounts of data and data sources. This is
correct. Yeah.
So this is the biggest challenge as to reach the deadline. So where here's the system, and the automation is one of the critical elements. Hopefully for us, we have already anticipated, while we haven't implemented the system, Treasury management system, we have already prepared the floor as to automate a lot of production of data, which was very helpful to our teams as to obtain automatic reconciliation between the ERP and the Treasury system, and to manage this tremendous of data easily, and to rationalize the utilization of this data as to provide us with the relevant KPIs and with summarized cash forecasts. So the automation, if I would like to sum up, without this automation that we have already anticipated, I guess it would be really very challenging, if not very difficult, to manage these big volumes of data to ensure cash forecasts in daily basis in the sites and in weekly basis at corporate level.
Fantastic, thank you. And you mentioned already, of course, when we talk about automation, you already mentioned the word best practice. And of course, automation is probably one of the advisors of best practice as well. Saad, apart from automation, of course, try to automate as much as possible. Do you have any other tips for treasurers and cash management out there that are working on the cash flow forecast, or tips and tricks how they could improve their cash flow forecast?
Yeah, that's a really nice question, but I think, well, definitely, I think we said one, which is the automation that really makes a difference, and it's the new reality, right? Of digital in Treasury. It's key to keep things going and focus on things that matter rather than keep doing the manual stuff we have been doing many years ago. But as part of maybe general tips, I think it's more the soft side of it, which I really believe can make a big difference, is the fact of bringing everyone together, right? I think the people that maybe in the business and they are the one, let's say, dealing with accounts payable or accounts receivables or these kind of things is really make them aware of how the impact of the cash forecasting can affect the company, where can it go, what do we do with it behind the scenes, and once they report it, what is the importance of it, and what impact can have, and how can it be really reliable. So at the end of the day, it's accuracy. It's important to us, but I think when you show it in black and white to all the stakeholders, and you tell them, well, listen, your information is really important to us because of this and that, and this is how it impacts the business, and this is how it is. Definitely, they get more aware about that, and they put some effort. This I realized it personally. I mean, when I was engaging with my colleagues in the markets and in the businesses, and I was taking like conferences with them and meetings to show them how it impacts, and in a really daily basis, what do we do with that? They really you really hear like sounds of, oh yeah, that's how important it is. Because I understand from their perspective, if they don't know, at the end of the day, it's like for them, well, the most important here is to bring cash to the company and to make sure we are selling, and to make sure we are engaging with our customers and with our clients. This part, they see it as cash forecasting. Okay, this is a KPI that someone is tracking behind, and maybe it's not that important. But I think once you engage them, they realize that it's something that everyone is important, and it impacts them more than they think it does. So I think the awareness side of it, it's really important, and maybe it's something that we as a treasury community, I'm talking here, we are missing, and maybe we are focusing in things that are way more complex to improve our cash forecasting and our treasury operations, while maybe we are just missing some engagement and awareness on the side. So I think it's something I see it personally as a low-hanging fruit. If you include everyone on the process and say, well, listen, this is the situation, this is how we do things, this is the impact. So if we all put our hand here, this can take us to this different level and can help us progress and move forward. I'm sure you will see some real benefit in a short time.
And I think, once again, you made a very interesting point. You can automate all you want, but cash flow forecasting is not a treasury activity. It's a group-wide activity. So actually, everybody in the organization needs to be on the same line, and that's very well said. Saad, you made a very good point. Abdessalem, you have any final short tips and tricks, best practice that you could share for the listeners and the viewers?
Yeah, of course. Just I would add, that's why when I mentioned training, not only for treasury teams, but also for all stakeholders that provide the treasury with information. Why? Because the quality is depending on the person. So how to prepare the information, mainly in very short deadlines, when you ask as a customer service or the payable, the supply. How to change their behavior, how to ensure the new quality of data is also they also involved in this kind of training. So with reference, so Chris, it's important that there are some relatively new best practices that we start to share post-COVID, but we didn't pay a lot of attention before, but they are very critical to secure a relevant cash forecast. Some of them, in addition to the 13 weeks weekly cash forecast with 12 months visibility, as in this unprecedented event, the approach changed immediately for everybody. We need to act in short term, but we plan for mid and long term. This is a new approach that we have to change with. So some other best practices that we have shared, and they are really very important to secure this relevant treasury cash forecast. The cash forecast keeping rolling on weekly basis. The cash forecast with changing key cash flows indicators. It's very important. We were not familiar with that. We know that the KPI that changes every week, one times per year, but now the KPIs could change every week because the behavior of the customer and supplier change immediately. So how to keep rolling of this cash forecast on weekly basis with the appropriate data and the appropriate key cash flows indicators. To be conservative, how to adopt the conservative approach by the treasurers. Why? Because I have said, I insist that the treasury suddenly becomes the primary tools for the management. So when communicating to the management, we have to pay a lot of attention in the information because the management immediately makes decision based on that. So we asked, we trained our teams how to be conservative. So not to be very optimistic. It's an unprecedented event. We don't know when it will be the recovery after 6, 12 months, 2 years, we don't know. So to pay attention when to set data, prefer that the worst scenario than the best scenario. So if the worst scenario reached, so okay, we have already prevented the management, we have already taken the appropriate decision. If the worst scenario will be not there, so it's good news for the group and for the management. So this is a conservative approach. Last but not least is the model scenarios. So unlike on the past, the pre-COVID period, the post-COVID periods, I carry to the management, to my CFO, and to the CEO, not only one model of cash forecast. No, I have to carry with at least 3 scenarios. This is the best one. This is the middle. This is the worst scenarios, because we have lack of visibility, we have low visibility, and the management will not have the time to come back to the treasury of the group to discuss again which if the decision is appropriate. It would be better that I provide the management with a lot of modeling scenarios, and based on that, the management no need to come back to our teams to make the appropriate decision.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. You really mentioned also in the last bit a little bit of range forecasting. Yeah, the high forecast and middle forecast. It's very important in this period. Yes.
The transparency is very critical.
Absolutely. It's and it needs to be flexible as well.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, that's all we have time for. Saad and Abdessalem, thank you very much for your insights and for your very valuable tips that the viewers and listeners will definitely be able to take home and back to their desk when they're looking at revamping their cash flow forecasting process in their respective organizations. So thank you very much, Saad. Thank you very much, Abdessalem. This is a recorded session, so you can review it again and again and again and again. If you have any questions, please reach out to Saad and Abdessalem, who will be present over the 2 days. Keep the discussion going on cash flow forecasting. You can always go to Twitter and use hashtag ACT Middle East and join the conversation. Also, please visit the virtual exhibition of the conference, where there's loads of information, and partners will be there to share their thoughts as well. That's all from us. We wish you a very good rest of the conference, and have a good day, and thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you all.
Chris.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.